Hi, folks. Welcome to the ClearFeed podcast. I spent some time with founders in the SaaS industry, just talking about their experiences, how they built their companies. I'm co-founder CEO at ClearFeed, and today with me I have Girish. I'll let Girish introduce himself.
Thanks, Joydeep. Thanks for having me. Hey, everyone. I'm Girish. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sprinto. At Sprinto, we are a agentic platform for helping companies build trust around their security and privacy programs. Usually, this takes the shape and form of compliances like SOC 2, ISO, GDPR, HIPAA, the entire alphabet soup. I'm a second-time founder, primarily an engineer and a programmer. First, happiest when I'm writing code and building product.
Great. So we have a lot of shared things between the two of us. So let me just kick it off by asking you, what inspired you to start Sprinto? I saw that, you have built companies before this, and you also actually have a co-founder from your previous venture. So would love to learn about your journey a little bit.
Sure. So, as in most things with life, this was a little incidental. Like you said, I did a startup before this. One of the things that happened when I was trying to grow that startup was as we were going after more and more larger customers, we started getting asked for the security related due diligence things. They started by I'm sure most of us founders have faced this. Like you get
Yeah.
like these hundreds of questions and questionnaires, and they are no fun. But we started getting those, and then we started getting asked for things like SOC 2 and ISO and etc. And we tried to kick the can down the road as much as possible. At some point, it became apparent
Yeah.
that hey, we need to bite the bullet. So we said, okay, fine, let's get this done. So we did all the the conventional things that was supposed to be done at the time. We hired like a security consultant, and tens of thousands of dollars. And 6 months down the line, we didn't have much to show for it. Long story short, I love the bits that were helping us become more secure. Hated the bits that just seemed like paper pushing, documentation, just all the back and forth that happens with auditors, etc. And to be perfectly honest, it's not like the idea to do something about it came at the time, but we eventually, sold that company. We sold it to a private equity firm here in the Bay Area, and then there was a time when we were thinking about, both I and my co-founder were thinking about what to do next, and this was one of the experiences that stayed with us. And it's such a it had all the right ingredients in the sense that it's a boring, unsexy problem that nobody wants to touch with a 10-foot pole, but at the same time, it's high value. You rarely find problems that are high value and high pain on that intersection of the Venn diagram. They seem to have all the right ingredients that way, and so that's roughly how we got started with that problem statement in Sprinto. So yeah, it did come from some prior experience in that problem area.
Yeah, I think that's how most companies start. It's very hard to it's the easiest thing to solve your own itch, I think. One of the things that's very amazing about your journey is like you and I think your co-founder Raghuveer, I think you have been riding the startup journey together for a long time. And finding a great co-founding team is actually one of the hardest problems in a startup.
Yeah.
What's been the secret to sort of like what now, like I don't know, like 15-year marriage now, or like maybe even longer, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, our wives complain that we spend more time with each other than with them. So, I've known Raghu for more than a couple of decades now. So, we go back a long way. And again, not something that you can concoct and manufacture. It was sort of incidental. Raghu and I went to the same college. We incidentally had the same first job, and we incidentally used to sit in neighboring cubicles. So, that sort of, helped us become
Right.
friends first before we were ever thinking about startups, etc. We again incidentally our first job was in Pune, and we again incidentally and independently both moved to Bangalore and it so happened that we ended up living close to each other, and we bumped into each other again. And I remember there was a time when our jobs required us to have overlap with the US, and one of the downstream effects of that was that work began later in the afternoon. So, the mornings were relatively free. And just purely accidentally, that began like a ritual where we should just meet each other for breakfast pretty much every day. And then, uh, uh, what happens when you're just sitting there, you're thinking of
Got it.
ideas. Hey, we should do this, we should do that, etc. And we were pretty naive, honestly. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
But it was one of those times when typically people from an engineering background, you have one or two. Like the standard thing you do is you do GMAT and you get like an MBA, and you sort of go down that route. And we were doing like, hey, either we should do this, or maybe there's a chance to do like a software company. And honestly, even the word startup didn't sort of occur to us, because we weren't quite aware of that ecosystem and how that works. Like what we were thinking of is like, hey, we've got to. It'll be interesting to build a software business. And that's how the first startup happened. It
Yeah.
was extremely accidental.
Yeah. No, I remember that era, 2011, if I'm not mistaken. There weren't as many startups in India, and I think Flipkart was the marquee startup. Like, that was the one sort of example in the ecosystem. And yeah, it was a very different era from now, where there are hundreds or thousands of startups. Very, very, good. You have a lot of luck in having such a partner for such a long time. Let's talk a little bit about Sprinto. Tell me a little bit about how big you guys are, and how have you managed to navigate the journey so far? Because security, as you described, while it's perhaps a boring problem, but it is also tough for startups to crack, because inevitably companies want to engage with somebody trustworthy. It's a sort of obviously a very high stakes sort of a thing. Yeah, so would love to learn about how you manage to penetrate the space, and also like what your challenges were.
Yeah. So let me just walk through the timeline of Sprinto a little bit. Hopefully that gives us some context. So we started working on Sprinto in early 2020. At the time, it was just me, my co-founder, and one more person who currently heads my engineering. So it was the three of us, and we were mainly all just sitting and programming and building product. I remember we started, and then COVID hit, and then we did like the classic mistake of trying to recreate like the office setup instead of a remote environment, because we didn't quite know how to work remote. So there was like the Zoom window which was on for 16 hours every day. We were programming, looking over the shoulder. That was basically how the first 1 year or so was happening. We did a little bit of a counterintuitive thing at Sprinto, where especially in startups, the conventional wisdom is that, hey, you should just start acquiring customers right away. And one of the things that we did a little counterintuitively at Sprinto early on is that uh, we sort of knew that this is an existing market. It's not like we are selling people that, hey, you should become SOC 2 ISO compliant.
Right.
This market existed. People did this. They just did it in the manual services based manner. And our main hypothesis was that we should be able to automate this. And the main risk that we perceived in this whole process is that we didn't want to become another services company. We wanted to be a product company. And the risk that we were trying to sort of eliminate in the first few months that we were working on this is to say that, can we actually productize this? Is how much of this is actually productizable? And we had a hypothesis that it should be like almost entirely productizable, but we needed to prove that out. Right. So we did the counterintuitive thing of, instead of working with customers early on, we used to actually work with auditors. So we used to go to auditors and say that, hey, get us,
What exactly?
we want to become SOC 2 compliant, make us, audit us. And in the process, we were actually building the product behind the scenes. All right. So, but that is how the first few months were. Fast forward to in June or July of 2021 is when we said, okay, I think we have reasonable confidence about how this works. we've taken a couple of beta customers through an audit. Now we need to meaningfully start acquiring customers. And we looked around the room, and I was the worst programmer between the three of us. So I said, okay, fine. I'll start doing I'll start looking at customer acquisition and things like that. And then fast forward between. So we've had about 4.5 years under the sun. So between three people, we are more than 350 people today.
Wow.
We have more than 3,000 customers across 70 countries today. We did a Series A and a Series B along the way with the likes of Axel. So it's been a blur, and it's been a rapid, massive growth in those intervening 4 years or so. But that's roughly our journey, and that was a germination.
What were your biggest challenges? Did you do most of this out of India, or how was the geographical sort of journey as well?
So right from the outset, we're pretty clear that US is going to be our primary market.
Right.
And what did happen, though, is that we got extremely surprised with the amount of demand that existed in India. It was just naturally a lot of demand was getting generated without us even, doing as much as we would otherwise do if we were actually meaningfully going after the market. But there just seemed to be like a natural demand over there. In fact, our entry in the US got a little bit delayed because we were building the org just to meet the demand that was coming from the other parts of the world as well. But yes, I think within 9 months of us entering the US market, that became our largest market just in terms of revenue internally. So it just quickly, the original hypothesis sort of panned out. So one of the interesting things about the space that we are in is that the markets are relatively homogeneous by geography.
Right.
And of course, there are differences, but I speak with a bunch of founders where, let's say you're selling I don't know, procurement software or a software
Right.
to the HR people or to the
Right.
basically the to the financial office, and I see there are massive differences in the product and between what happens. Let's say if you sell that in APAC or versus Europe versus Middle East versus US, and while there are some differences, on a large majority of the software stack, as far as governance, risk, and compliance, seems to be
Yeah.
fairly standard, very similar. So I think I'll not pretend that we had a hypothesis about this. I think we got partially lucky about that. It's something that just happened. But that also meant that while we have customers across 70 countries, you can still sell the same product fundamentally, and I think that's a massive thing that worked in our favor. Speaking of challenges, I think one I already spoke about. We were going about this in a counterintuitive way where we were not acquiring customers, beta customers too early on. So, everybody was a little nervous about whether that's the right strategy. We had to make that call because we were worried that we didn't want to become a services company. Like that was a main risk that we wanted to eliminate, but that still looked very risky. That we went many months into the cycle without actually acquiring customers consciously. All right. So that was one risk and one challenge. The other challenge I would say is that there were still COVID restrictions were on, and we had to basically figure out a US GTM without actually physically being in the US at the time. I moved to the US after that, but there's US did become a largest market without us having to be physically there. So we had to figure out that GTM. That was another significant challenge that we had to overcome. I would say the bunch of other things is the fact is that I've never built a venture funded company before. This is the first time I'm doing that. So there's everything is new. My previous company was completely bootstrapped. I've never built a 300, 400 people company before. So this is the first time I'm doing that. I'm sure I'm doing a bunch of things wrong. So we had to never build a remote company before. So just from an org building standpoint, there was a bunch of things that we had to learn and figure out. And I'm sure, we're still a work in progress about that. I don't think I'll not pretend that I've got everything right about
Yeah,
it.
a bunch of things really resonate here. So I remember, I had a very similar experience like yourself of undergoing SOC 2 compliance at my previous firm. And I didn't know or think that, there was a better path possible. And I remember, I think it was 21 or 22. I think I did a call with you and you did a demo, and I was like pretty blown away. I was like, wow, like this is so much better than whatever pain that, we went through. And very impressive. And then, of course, we signed up and we have been sort of, customers of yours for a number of years now. Yeah, I did want to talk a little bit about the market, and you've had a great journey, but these boring problems have actually drawn a lot of competitors. Obviously, any space that is large will draw competitors, and you know, you have a number of players in this market now. Some of them are actually older ones. I think Vanta was probably one of the better known ones, perhaps even before you got started. So, how do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace?
Sure. So, if I just take a step back, as a founder, you have one of the two poisons to choose to drink. You're either in a space that's where the fact that you need a product is a no-brainer. And if you're in that space, you naturally attract a lot of competition. Or
Yeah,
you're in a space where you pretty much have to shove down your product down people's throats
yeah,
because they don't necessarily know that they need something over here. Okay. Having done this a couple of times, I'd always pick the first
yeah,
problem statements. Like I'd rather be in that space than figuring out how to basically market uh, a problem that people don't necessarily want or they don't know that they want. So that obviously comes with its own sets of
yeah,
challenges, and there's a bunch
right,
of things that you need to figure out. But in the larger scheme of things, I'd always pick this.
right,
Um,
right.
Now, I think uh, if you look at the just the market that we operate in, there is we are a challenger brand, and the way we look at this is that sure there are players who have raised a lot of money and consequently can make a lot of noise, but especially with respect to every beauty contest, so to speak, that we have where we are being pegged against our competitors. The main way we differentiate ourselves is just the amount of degree of automation that we bring to the table, especially in the age of AI. The fact of the matter is that compliance or governance and risk, these require a large amount of human lift. And there aren't as many resources available to do that lift. If you're a younger startup, it's usually the CTO slash founder who's doing this job, and this is just one of the many things that they want to do. So the amount of time and energy and effort that they have available for this is very minimal. So how much of the lift can the product do versus a human requiring to do that is like a massive difference, and we focus exclusively on that. So and we sort of go to right to the bleeding edge of whatever's possible in order to do that. So just to give you an example, something I'm really excited about is like most recently we launched what we call as a fix-it agent, which is kind of like there's a browser agent, and if you basically know that there is a gap in your compliance posture, today you still have to go and read some documentation and go and fix it by going to AWS or GCP, etc. But here's an agent that if you just say it actually goes to the right places, just ask for your permissions and does the things for you. So even to that extent where you just have to basically click and say that the agent will basically do the remediation for you. That's the extent to which Sprinto goes, and we always keep pushing the frontiers on what's possible and what can be automated, and that's the way we differentiate from anywhere in the market. The other ways that we differentiate also is that as you go in more and more complex environments, and many of our customers are now larger enterprises. These are public companies, and they have not as homogeneous as environments as a technology startup would. They have part of their workloads on-prem, uh,
Right.
some on
Okay.
cloud. They're not on a single cloud. They will be on multi-cloud. They have employees across different geographies. Some of them are remote, some of them are in office, some of them are contractors, etc., etc. And then that basically means that you have a very uneven surface over which you need to get compliant over. And often many of the competitors, they feel like they're an off-the-shelf product that feels like pushing a round peg into a square hole. They're not flexible enough when it comes to meeting such complex environments, and that's what we focus on a lot. So Sprinto is built more like a platform, and what that means is you can put this together in like a Lego block to make it meet the customer's unique requirements, and that's what we excel at as well. So those are the couple of things that we do. Just to summarize, like massive degrees of flexibility and adaptability to complex environments, and the second is just the degree of automation that's possible. Those are two things that we focus on when it comes to differentiating in the market, and AI is a huge game changer when it comes to that.
Yeah, that was gonna
Yeah.
be my next question anyway. Let's talk about AI. What are you guys, how's it affecting your industry, your product, and of course, how are you using it? Need to learn that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you know what, like, again, I think we made the classic mistake early on, as soon as AI burst onto the scene, of just saying that, hey, how do we sort of adopt AI? Uh, uh, and as soon as you say those words, the mental picture that you have is that you look at your software, uh, and you basically find pockets where you can inject AI. And I think us and our competitors were pretty much all doing that, and we were finding places like, okay, here, this is a part where maybe you can do. This is where people are doing this manually. There's a human input required. Let's do this by AI. Let's do this by AI, etc. And what we have realized since then is that yes, that does give you a lot of benefit, and there's a certain degree of productivity that you can unlock by doing that. But it also helps a lot to sort of take a step back and reimagine this whole thing in an AI first world, and that becomes both exciting as well as challenging, because in part you sort of are what's the word, uh, victims of your own success. You have a large number of customers who are
Yeah.
happily using you, and there's a certain way that you sort of think that the platform ought to work, the software ought to work, and it's really hard to sort of ask the question as to, like, what if this wasn't the right way to build this? Like, would this look very different if you were to build this ground up in an AI first world, and what would that look like? I'm glad that we have actually uh, uh, at least try to do that in a completely reimagined manner. So we recently, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, released like our vision for an AI first GRC platform. That includes things like being able to tell you today, the way this works is, for example, you decide that, hey, I want to become SOC 2 compliant, or I want to become ISO compliant, or but that's not just the only thing that defines your compliance program. Uh, the security practices you run can be because of anything that might change in your regulatory landscape. So depending on where you are, what industry, what geography you are in, and GDPR gets a new amendment. Do you know what it means to your program downstream? If you're in India, SEBI releases a new circular, or if you're in the US, then SEC releases a new circular. How does that affect you? Does it affect you? You have a cybersecurity insurer. They have some other expectations of what your program has to be. You have contractual obligations. This is another black hole which most people don't look at. Like you're actually signing contracts with your customer, then they expect you to have a certain program in place. And does that mean that your program needs to change? Etc. These things are unknown. So we're building what we call as a trust cortex. And the idea behind that is that, hey, we should be able to tell you based off all of these inputs that, hey, whether your program is in sync or it's drifting away from what it needs to be, and give you like actionable steps of doing what needs to happen over there. That's number one. Number two, while we are using AI, the fact is that the environments that we work in are also using AI. And one of the largest challenges that our customers have is basically how do they adopt AI more confidently? I'm sure you're facing this at ClearFeed as well, where
Yeah.
while you're trying to become AI first as a product, you're also adopting AI as a company. And there is this fear for anybody who's security minded that are we all the tools that we are using, are you using them safely? Are they safe enough to use? Are we sharing company data with them? Are we sharing
Got it.
private, secure information with that, etc.? And there's no meaningful way of doing this well. The old world where you would evaluate a vendor and deem them as safe no longer works, because yes, ChatGPT is safe, let's say, because whatever they have all the security practices in place. But is it safe to actually share, let's say, some extremely sensitive document of your company on ChatGPT? Maybe not, right? So
Right.
it's gone into a world where there is just such an explosion of the number of AI tools that everybody in the companies are trying to adopt, because every week something new comes up. People want to try to make their life a little bit easier, and not just the surface area of these tools is increasing. The interactions with them is also changing on a day-to-day basis. You use this tool to do X today, but you're going to do Y tomorrow with them, and it's extremely hard for anybody to keep track of it. So we're actually building something which allows you to do this in a meaningfully confident manner, and to look at those interactions and be able to say that, hey, does this meet your company's policies, without you already knowing that, hey, today I'm using, I don't know, GenSpark, tomorrow I'm going to use Gamma to make presentations, and day after it might be some other tool I haven't heard of yet. Can we quickly tell you whether it is whether the way you're using this is safe or not, whether the vendor that you're using for this is safe or not? So that's another thing that we are actually building for. So not only are we building using AI, but we're building for an AI first world where we anticipate that companies are going to adopt a lot of AI, and how do we make that adoption uh, a lot more seamless?
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, I mean, so basically, it's creating new surface is actually an opportunity for you, um,
Yes.
uh, from a business point of view. Yeah, and when I look at things like MCP, and we are also sort of trying to build AI tooling, have built a bunch of AI tooling, and not just compliance, but just the security holes are pretty scary, because
Yes.
you open up these tools with these APIs and make it easy to access, but then authorization and all that stuff is like still a work in progress, and
Yeah.
it's very scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about what about internally? How do you have any success stories you can share in terms of how you have used AI internally within the company to bring efficiency or you know yeah yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, I'll not pretend that we are great at this, but we always a work in progress. But this is a uh, important mandate for us internally to improve our own productivity using AI. There's actually a team that goes after this to
Ah,
find out opportunities where this can happen. Because if you just leave it saying that, hey, go
yeah.
figure, this will figure out how you're going to do it. You get a few sprinklings of success, but you don't actually do anything meaningfully about it. Um, and yeah, like the usual suspects of where you can expect gains over here. Obviously, engineering is a by itself, like a product and engineering and R&D as a
Yeah.
department as a whole is like a place where there's a massive leverage with this, and we see that as well. Not just in terms of writing code, but building early mock-ups from the product side, design, and all of these places. There's like a massive productivity boost because of us you being able to use AI. Just refactoring stuff that we thought was going to take months is now basically days or weeks, and a bunch of those kind of things. Those
Rewriting
are
all the
the
early code you wrote.
yeah, like basically washing off my sense, so to speak. But yes. So, there is and just as we figure out, like I was saying, like, we are transforming ourselves into a platform. And what that means is there's a fair bit of refactor that happens. And when you have 3,000 plus live customers who are already actively using your product, and
Right.
while you're doing all of this refactoring, you
That's
can't
right.
really
Big challenge.
take too many risks. So it's kind of like changing the tracks while you're riding the train on them. So it's kind of like a challenging thing. So we definitely use AI over there. But that
Yeah.
apart as well, like, whether it comes to um, customer engagement and support and success, there is a bunch of AI being used there on just
Yeah, I
how
was
to
gonna ask
respond
about
to
that.
basic.
I think um, my experience, of course, you guys have done an amazing job at productifying sort of compliance, like you mentioned. but it is still somewhat supports, there is reasonable amount of support needed. I think, every company runs into some minor troubleshooting issues here and there. So support is one of the areas where AI, of course, is sort of it's probably one of the best suited opportunities for AI. Yeah, I would love to learn a little bit more about, what you have done there, any specific tools that you've used that you have found effective.
So we are doing a bunch of homegrown stuff there,
Okay.
as of now. Like I'm sure we're also leveraging stuff that comes baked into the tooling that we already have. Pretty much every SaaS tool today has become an AI first tool. But we also doing like a bunch of homegrown stuff there, especially in terms of how to answer
Yeah.
inbound requests and questions, and how do we best do that. And in some ways, one of the ways to think about this is what happens when a customer has a question. But the other lens to look at it is that how can we sort of make this part of the product itself?
Yeah.
It's like usually like in the older world, we assume this to be of the form that okay, there's a product, and once we have like a question about the product, you sort of leave the product pane and you go to sort of this customer's support kind of a pain, and then you ask like a human or a bot or something else, and then they answer. But I think
It's all
those two
merging.
boundaries are becoming a little merging. And like I was saying, right, uh, uh, with the fix-it agent that I was talking about, which is you could usually, like the way you think about it is I'll write documentation about how do you go and fix this problem. But now can I actually make an agent do that for you instead of you having to go through a
Yeah.
documentation that fixes this problem? So we are trying to sort of merge the boundaries of that as well. Okay, and so when I say that customer experience has to get better, it's not just in terms of how they interact with success and support and account management and those things. Of course, there is natural ways that we can look at it, but it's also how to reimagine places where people might even need help. And that help can be within product instead of that being
Yeah.
sort of somewhere where you need to go outside and look at those things. So those are some of the areas that we're looking at very closely.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So let me, try to wrap this up with, maybe one or two last questions. I think you've already talked a lot about, what's coming forward for you. I love hearing the product vision and sort of, I can see the product person. I guess you're playing the business role, but I can see the product person at heart, on the other side. What would be your advice for other founders, who are building out of India, at least starting out of India in, somewhat sort of deep tech, hard tech space, at least maybe not deep tech, or just building companies out of here. What advice would you give to new founders in this region?
That's a tough one, man. I honestly don't know how helpful uh, that sort of generic advice is. Like it's like you've been on this rodeo a couple of times. Like usually the advice that's useful is a little you know uh, that's more specific and contextual.
Right.
Uh, so without, I mean, at the risk of being fairly cliched, I'd say that one of the things that I'd uh, definitely uh, recommend doing is uh, especially if you're like a deep tech founder, and today that usually means that you are in you're in an AI first world. I would basically let me put it this way. This is advice that I'm giving to myself more than somebody
Yeah,
else. Then the thing that I try to remind myself is to not get uh, too excited and too romanticized by the tech itself, but sort of marry myself more to the problem. So I love uh, the concept and the idea of what they call now, like it has a nice label called the forward deployed engineer,
right.
and it's catching a lot of steam. But I think the main principle behind this is like an age old principle, like uh, be where your customer is. work with them extremely closely. If it means being in their office, be there, and just actually figure out, what is their problem and how does your tech marry to that problem. And as much as that has been said again and again and again and again, the largest alpha basically lies there. The companies and the founders who do that better, will almost always win as compared to founders who have a hypothesis and a vision or whatever you might call it, but
Right.
are sort of thinking about this in this world, but it sort of doesn't mix with the ground realities of what your customer might be facing there, etc. There is a
Right.
certain value to having a vision and a hypothesis. Yes, we should
Right.
also do that, but not to lose the sight of the fact that on the ground, there might be a lot of boring, unsexy, real issues that could actually bring a lot more leverage and value to your customers. And it's important not to lose sight of that.
Right. Right. So in terms of what actually creates value could be sometimes even something mundane, as opposed to like something fancy. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
The more you spend time over there, and you learn a lot more, and you uncover. There's a lot of fertile ground over there that we sometimes forget.
Right. Right. Great. That is really useful. So I think I love this chat. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast and just telling us a little bit about your journey. And I think we'll just call it a day today here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Joydeep. I enjoyed the chat as well.